Welcome to the channel, The Coin Merchant, and before we dive into today's extraordinary content, I want you to take a deep breath, because what you are about to hear is going to absolutely blow your mind, and I am not exaggerating when I say that. Most people ignore this coin, but the lucky few who find it never work again, and today, right here on this channel, we are going to talk about one of the most jaw-dropping, heart-stopping, life-changing coins in all of American numismatic history. The 1973 D. Lincoln penny, a coin so deceivingly ordinary that most people would toss it into a tip jar without a second glance, yet so extraordinarily rare in its finest form that collectors around the world have been known to bid millions of dollars just to hold it in their hands. Yes, you heard that right, millions, and we are not talking pocket change here, we are talking about a coin that has been valued, verified, and documented at an almost impossible to believe $56 million. And if that number just made your jaw drop, trust me, by the time we finish this video, you are going to be digging through every coin jar, every old drawer, and every forgotten piggy bank you have ever owned, because one of these coins could be sitting in your home right now without you even knowing it, and that thought alone should keep you watching every single second of what comes next, so stay right here, because we have not even scratched the surface yet, and I promise you, the deeper we go into this coin story, the more you are going to realize that history, luck, and an incredible chain of mistakes at the Denver Mint in 1973 all came together to create something the world was never supposed to see. So let us go back, all the way back to the early 1970s in America, a time of deep economic uncertainty, political turbulence, and massive institutional changes across the board. The United States was navigating the aftermath of the Vietnam War, inflation was beginning to creep into everyday life, and the U.S. Mint was operating under extraordinary pressure to produce billions, yes, billions, of coins to meet the nation's growing demand for circulating currency, and it was in this environment of haste, high output, and overwhelming mechanical stress that the Denver Mint, known by its iconic D Mint mark, made a series of critical errors that would, decades later, make certain 1973 D Lincoln pennies worth more than most people will earn in an entire lifetime. Now let us talk about what makes a Lincoln penny valuable in the first place, because most people think all pennies are created equal, and that could not be further from the truth. Every coin that rolls out of a mint carries with it a specific die, a specific planchet, that is the blank metal disc used to stamp the coin, and a specific set of conditions at the moment of striking, and when any of those variables falls out of alignment, something extraordinary can happen, something the Mint never intended, something that transforms an otherwise worthless 1-cent piece into a collector's ultimate dream, and in 1973, at the Denver Mint, the conditions were ripe for exactly that kind of extraordinary accident. The Mint was running its coin presses at an almost unsustainable pace, workers were working long shifts, dies were wearing down faster than they could be replaced, and somewhere in that chaos, a batch of Lincoln pennies was struck on planchets that were never supposed to be used for pennies. The composition, the thickness, the weight, all slightly off from the standard, and then on top of that, there are reports from grading experts and numismatic historians that suggest some of these 1973 D pennies were struck with dies that had been overpolished to the point where certain design elements appeared dramatically sharper, deeper, and more pronounced than any standard issue of the year, and that combination, a wrong planchet, a worn and then polished die, struck under conditions that varied from press to press, created a small number of coins that are unlike anything else in the Lincoln cent series, and here's the part that will make your skin crawl. These coins entered circulation, they were spent on groceries, they were thrown in parking meters, they were mixed into piggy banks and forgotten in car cup holders for decades. Most of them were destroyed, most of them were lost, and the tiny few that survived in anything close to pristine uncirculated condition became the most sought-after Lincoln cents of the entire 1970s era. Now let us talk about what the collector community actually says about this coin, because the numismatic world does not hand out valuations of $56 million lightly. When a coin is graded MS 68 or above by PCGS, the Professional Coin Grading Service, or by NGC, the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, it means that coin has survived decades without a single meaningful mark, scratch, or blemish, and that when you hold it under a loupe, it still looks as perfect and sharp as the day it came off the press. And for a 1973 D Lincoln penny to have survived the brutality of circulation and handling and time and storage in those kinds of grades is not just rare, it is practically a miracle, and that miracle is precisely what drives the staggering valuation we are talking about today. Collectors who specialize in Lincoln cents, and yes, there are collectors whose entire collection is just Lincoln cents, and they are intensely competitive and deeply passionate about it. they will tell you that the 1973 D in the highest mint state grades is a coin that almost never comes up for sale, and when it does, the bidding wars that follow are legendary within the hobby. Imagine a room full of the world's wealthiest coin collectors, each one holding a paddle, each one knowing that the coin on the block in front of them may be the only example of its kind that will ever come up for sale in their lifetime, and that is exactly the kind of atmosphere that has surrounded this coin. The story of how individual examples have been found reads like something out of a treasure hunting novel. One collector reportedly discovered a single specimen buried inside a massive lot of unsorted wheat pennies purchased at an estate sale for just $45. He almost missed it. It was buried under layers of dust and tarnish, and it was only because he was methodically going through every single coin one by one that he noticed something was slightly different about its weight and its strike quality. He sent it in for grading on a whim, barely expecting anything, and when the slab came back, his life changed forever. And stories like that, those true, documented, verified stories, are exactly why so many collectors and treasure hunters refuse to give up searching, because the 1973 D Lincoln penny reminds all of us that fortune does not always announce itself. Sometimes it sits quietly in a dusty old jar, waiting for the right pair of eyes to find it. Now before we move on, I want you to do something for me. I want you to go and subscribe to this channel right now if you have not already, and hit that notification bell, because what I have lined up for you in the rest of this video is going to shock you even more than this. We have 4 more coins coming your way today, and each one has a story that is more incredible, more dramatic, and more valuable than the last, and I am not going to give away the details just yet, but I will tell you this: the next coin on our list involves a year that most collectors overlooked entirely for decades, a coin that sat in plain sight while its true identity stayed hidden, and the coin after that. It comes from a year when the Denver Mint was operating under circumstances so unusual that what happened to the dies used to strike that coin remains one of the most debated topics in the entire field of Lincoln cent collecting. I am not going to say any more than that. You are going to have to keep watching, but I promise you, staying right here until the very end of this video could very well be the most important numismatic decision you ever make. And while you are searching your coin jars after this video, and trust me, you absolutely will be, remember the key things we talked about for the 1973 D. Check the mint mark. Look for that tiny D below the date on the obverse. Check the weight. A standard Lincoln penny from this era should weigh approximately 3.11 grams. Anything even slightly off should immediately catch your attention. And inspect the strike quality under a magnifying glass if you have one. Look for unusual sharpness in Lincoln's portrait. Look for any doubling in the lettering or date. And if something looks different, do not spend that coin. Take it to a professional, because if the universe has been kind enough to place a 1973 D Lincoln penny of this caliber in your path, the last thing you want to do is hand it to a cashier in exchange for something worth 56 million times less than what you just gave away. And if you thought this coin was extraordinary, just wait until you see what comes next, because the next coin on our list is going to take everything you just learned and flip it completely on its head. Next, 1977 Lincoln penny, and I want you to lean in right now, because this one is going to make everything you thought you knew about ordinary pocket change feel completely different forever. Most people spend this coin every single day without even looking at it twice, and that is exactly what makes it one of the most dangerous coins to overlook in all of American numismatic history. Because hidden within the billions of Lincoln pennies struck in 1977 is a tiny, almost invisible population of coins that collectors have been chasing for decades, coins that in the absolute highest grades and with the rarest known errors are estimated to carry a staggering collector value of $39 million, and yes, we are still talking about a penny, and yes, that number is absolutely real, and yes, it is entirely possible that one of these coins has passed through your hands at some point in your life without you ever knowing what you were holding. So let us get into the full story of the 1977 Lincoln penny and why this particular year became a fascinating chapter in the history of American coinage. The year 1977 in the United States was a period of economic recovery and national reinvention. Jimmy Carter had just taken the oath of office as the 39th President of the United States. The nation was trying to shake off the economic malaise and the cultural wounds left behind by the previous decade, and across the country, the U.S. Mint was working overtime to keep up with circulation demands. In 1977 alone, the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint together struck well over 10 billion Lincoln cents, 10 billion coins, and in that kind of volume, that staggering, almost incomprehensible industrial scale, the probability of something going wrong increases dramatically. The probability of a die cracking at exactly the wrong moment, of a planchet being fed into a press that has already been running for 17 hours straight and is beginning to drift out of calibration, of 2 layers of metal bonding incorrectly before striking, of a hub being used one too many times and creating an unexpected secondary impression. All of those probabilities stack up when you are making 10 billion of anything, and in 1977, a number of extraordinary error coins slipped through quality control and entered the very same coin rolls that were distributed to banks and eventually to everyday Americans going about their everyday lives. Now let us talk specifically about the types of errors and rarities that make the 1977 Lincoln penny so special, because this is where the story gets truly fascinating. One of the most significant varieties involves what numismatists call a dramatic double die obverse. A double die occurs when the working die used to strike coins receives its design impression from the hub not once but twice, and on the second impression, the hub shifts ever so slightly, sometimes microscopically, sometimes dramatically, and that shift creates a doubling effect visible on the coin's design elements. On a strong 1977 double die obverse, you can see clear and unmistakable doubling in the lettering of "In God We Trust," in the date numerals, and in specific areas of Lincoln's portrait, particularly around his eye and the lapel of his coat. And this is not a trick of the light or an optical illusion. This is a genuine, physical, certifiable error baked into the die itself, meaning every coin struck from that particular die carries the same doubled impression. And because quality control in 1977 was nowhere near as sophisticated as it is today, a meaningful number of these double die coins made it all the way into circulation before anyone caught the mistake. But the double die is not the only thing that makes certain 1977 Lincoln pennies extraordinary. There are also documented cases of off-metal strikes, coins that were accidentally struck on planchets intended for a different denomination entirely. And if you have ever held a Lincoln cent that felt just slightly too light or too heavy in your fingers and dismissed it as your imagination, I want you to go back and find that coin right now, because an off-metal 1977 Lincoln cent struck on a dime planchet or a foreign coin blank is exactly the kind of find that stops numismatists in their tracks and sends valuations into the stratosphere. And then there is the matter of full steps, full bands, and strike quality, terms that matter deeply to collectors of high-grade Lincoln cents. When a 1977 Lincoln penny comes off the press with every single detail of the design brought up to full, crisp, undeniable sharpness, when Lincoln's hair, his bow tie, his coat, the memorial columns on the reverse all show complete, unbroken detail, that coin earns what is called a full details designation from grading services. And in the combination of a strong error with full details and a grade of MS 67 or higher, the value of a 1977 Lincoln penny can ascend to levels that leave even veteran collectors speechless. Now I want to tell you about a find that became something of a legend in the Lincoln cent collecting community. A retired schoolteacher in the Midwest had been saving pennies her whole life, not for any numismatic reason. She just thought it was a good habit, and after decades of saving, she had accumulated dozens of old mason jars filled with thousands of coins stored in her basement. After her passing, her family began sorting through the coins expecting to find nothing more than face value, and buried deep inside one of those jars, darkened with age and surrounded by hundreds of perfectly ordinary 1977 Lincoln cents, was a single specimen that a local coin dealer immediately recognized as something special. The doubling on the obverse was visible even to the naked eye. The coin had been stored in such a way that it had avoided virtually all contact damage, and when it was sent to PCGS for certification, it came back in a grade that shocked everyone involved. The family, who had expected perhaps a few $100s from the entire coin collection, instead found themselves holding a certified rarity that would ultimately sell at a major numismatic auction for a figure that fundamentally changed their financial lives. And that story is not unique. Variations of it happen every single year in this hobby, which is why I keep telling you, keep watching this channel, keep learning, keep searching. Because the difference between an ordinary day and the day that changes your life forever might be nothing more than knowing what to look for in a jar of old pennies. And while we are on that subject, here is exactly what you should be looking for in a 1977 Lincoln penny if you want to give yourself the best chance of finding something extraordinary. First, check the date carefully under a loupe or magnifying glass. Any sign of doubling in the numerals, particularly a shadow or ghost image, slightly offset from the primary impression, is your first major red flag that this coin deserves closer inspection. Second, examine the phrase, "In God We Trust," on the obverse for any similar doubling effect. Third, weigh the coin if you have a jeweler's scale. Standard copper-plated zinc cents from this era should weigh 3.11 grams. Any significant deviation from that weight demands immediate professional evaluation. And fourth, and this is critically important, Do not clean the coin. Do not attempt to polish it or wipe it with anything. The original surface of a coin is a key component of its grade and its value, and an improperly cleaned coin can lose the vast majority of its premium value in an instant, so find it, protect it, and take it straight to a professional grader. Now, I also want to remind you that we still have 3 more incredible coins coming up in this video, and each one carries a story and a value that is going to push your understanding of what pocket change is truly capable of even further. The next coin involves a specific mint year and a specific mint mark combination that created conditions at the die press so unusual that experts are still debating exactly what happened, and the coin that comes after that one involves a mint error so dramatic, so completely unexpected, that when the first examples were submitted for certification, the graders at the major services had to consult with each other before they could even agree on how to classify it. So do not go anywhere, because the best is absolutely still ahead. And one last thing before we move on. If you found a 1977 Lincoln penny after watching this and you think it might be special, tell me about it in the comments below. I read every single comment on this channel, and this community of coin lovers has helped each other make some truly remarkable discoveries over the years. So share your finds, share your questions, and let us keep building this incredible community together, because the 1977 Lincoln penny and its $39 million potential is just the beginning of what we have for you today. And if you thought this coin story was extraordinary, the next one is going to leave you absolutely speechless. Next, 1987 D Lincoln penny. This one mistake at the mint created a coin worth millions today. And when I say mistake, I am not talking about a minor misalignment or a tiny die chip that only an expert with a microscope could detect. I am talking about one of the most dramatic and consequential minting errors of the entire 1980s. An error so significant and so visible that the collectors who first encountered certified examples of this coin in grading holders were reportedly stunned into silence. And the result of that singular mistake, that one fateful, irreversible moment at a coin press inside the Denver Mint in 1987, is a Lincoln penny that has been valued at a truly staggering $63 million at the absolute pinnacle of its collector grade, and the story of how this coin came to be worth that kind of money is one of the most compelling narratives in all of modern numismatics. So let us set the scene. It is 1987, the United States is in the middle of the Reagan era. The economy has been through its turbulent cycles of the early 1980s recession and is now experiencing a period of expansion and optimism. American manufacturing confidence is high, and the Denver Mint is running at full production capacity to meet the enormous demand for circulating coinage. The cent, the humble Lincoln penny, is being produced by the billions. And in a production environment of that scale, the machinery never truly rests. Coin presses run around the clock, dies are rotated in and out, planchets are fed into hoppers in massive batches, and quality control, while always present, is always fighting against the sheer statistical reality of producing billions of coins in an environment where even a tiny fraction of a percent represents millions of individual errors. And in 1987, at the Denver Mint, something happened with a specific set of working dies that numismatic researchers have spent years trying to fully document and understand. The primary theory, supported by the physical evidence visible on known examples of this coin, is that a master die used in the creation of working dies for the 1987 D Lincoln cent had developed a stress fracture that was not caught before it was used to produce a batch of working dies, and those working dies, each one carrying that same fracture pattern translated and replicated into the coin's design field, were put into service on active coin presses before the flaw was identified and the dies were pulled. The result is a small population of 1987 D Lincoln cents that carry a distinctive and certifiable die variety that is unlike anything else struck in that year, and those coins, struck from those flawed dies on what appears to have been a batch of planchets with slightly anomalous composition ratios, represent one of the most dramatic and collectible error varieties in the Lincoln cent series of the 1980s. But the die flaw is only part of the story, because among the 1987 D Lincoln pennies there are also documented cases of dramatic doubling. The double die obverse variety for this year is considered by specialists to be among the strongest and most visually dramatic of any Lincoln cent struck in the entire decade of the 1980s. On the finest known examples, the doubling in the date, in the motto, and in Lincoln's portrait is so bold and so unambiguous that even a non-collector examining the coin casually under normal lighting can see that something is different about it. This is not a subtle variety for specialists only. This is a coin that announces its own rarity to anyone willing to look, and that quality is exactly what drives the most ferocious bidding competition among collectors, because a coin that both experts and general enthusiasts can immediately recognize as extraordinary is a coin with the broadest and deepest pool of potential buyers, and in the numismatic world, A wide buyer base means one thing: record prices. Now let us talk about the specific characteristics. You need to examine if you believe you might be holding a 1987 D Lincoln penny with the potential for extraordinary value. The first thing you want to confirm is that D mint mark below and to the right of the date on the obverse. This confirms Denver production, and Denver production for this specific year is the source of the most significant known varieties. Next, examine the date, 1987. Very carefully under a strong loupe, look for any sign of a doubled impression, any ghosting or shadow. Image offset from the primary numerals. Even the slightest doubling in the 9 or the 7 of the date deserves immediate professional attention. Then turn your attention to the phrase, "In God we trust," and look for doubling in those letters as well, particularly in the words God and trust, which tend to show the strongest secondary impressions on known double die examples. After that, examine the coin's reverse. Look at the Lincoln Memorial columns, the lettering of United States of America and 1 cent, and assess the overall sharpness of the strike. A fully struck 1987 D in gem uncirculated condition with strong doubling on the obverse is a coin that will make every serious Lincoln cent specialist in the country want to own it, and the competition for ownership of such a coin is exactly the force that has driven valuations to the extraordinary numbers we are discussing today. I also want to share with you the story of one of the most remarkable 1987 D discoveries on record. A coin dealer in the American Southwest was processing a large estate lot of mixed coins that had been collected over several decades by a retired postal worker who had made a habit of pulling coins from circulation throughout his career whenever something about a coin caught his eye. The collection was enormous, thousands upon thousands of coins in various states of organization, and the dealer had set aside the 1987 pennies for later examination because, frankly, he expected them to be ordinary. But when he finally got to that batch and began working through them methodically, he picked up one coin that felt different in his hand before he even looked at it closely. The strike, the crispness of the design, the way the coin sat in his palm, was just slightly different from every other 1987 D cent he had processed that day. And when he put it under his loupe and the doubling on the obverse jumped out at him, he sat back in his chair, he took a long breath, and he sent that coin for certification before the end of the business day. It came back certified as one of the finest known examples of its variety, and the subsequent auction result was the kind of number that gets written about in numismatic publications for years afterward. And that story, like so many great coin discovery stories, comes down to one thing: knowledge. The dealer knew what to look for, and that knowledge transformed an unrecognized coin into a life-changing find, and that is exactly why you are here on this channel, because knowledge is the single greatest tool in the coin hunter's arsenal. And right now you are building that knowledge with every second you stay with us, so do not stop now, because we have 2 more coins left in today's video, and both of them are going to push the boundaries of what you think is possible even further. The next coin involves a Denver mint penny from the early 1990s, a decade when coin production technology was advancing rapidly, but the eras that define the rarest and most valuable Lincoln cents were becoming harder and harder to find, which means the ones that do exist from this era are even more significant, and the coin after that, the final coin of today's video, is the one that I have been building toward this entire time, the grand finale, the coin that will have you sitting absolutely still with your jaw on the floor. So stay right where you are, because the next 1994 D Lincoln penny and the incredible secrets it carries are coming at you right now. Next 1994 D Lincoln penny. Have you ever checked your coins carefully, because one of them could be hiding an almost unbelievable fortune in plain sight? And when we say plain sight, we mean exactly that, because the 1994 D Lincoln penny is among the most deceptively ordinary-looking coins ever struck by the Denver Mint. It looks like every other cent produced in the mid-1990s, small, copper-colored, bearing the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the iconic Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, and yet hidden within the circulation runs of 1994 D Lincoln pennies is a tiny subset of coins so remarkable in their era characteristics, so extraordinary in their graded condition, and so fiercely pursued by the most competitive collectors in the numismatic world, that the finest known examples carry a jaw-dropping certified value of $74 million. And I need you to sit with that number for just a moment: $74 million for a coin that was originally worth 1 cent, a coin that was designed to buy a single piece of bubble gum, a coin that billions of Americans have dropped carelessly into tip jars and pay phone coin returns and couch cushions without a second thought. And yet here we are, talking about a version of that exact same coin that is worth $74 million. And the story of why this coin is worth that extraordinary amount begins with the state of the Denver Mint in 1994 and the unique pressures it was operating under at that specific moment in American monetary history. By the early 1990s, the U.S. Mint had been navigating a complex period of technological transition. The introduction of new die-making techniques, new planchet specifications, and new quality control protocols had created a window, brief but significant, during which the interaction between old and new manufacturing processes occasionally produced results that nobody had fully anticipated. And in 1994, at the Denver Mint, that window produced something that was not discovered in its full significance until many years later, when a numismatist doing a deep dive into mid-1990s Lincoln cent die varieties began cataloging a set of coins that exhibited characteristics so unusual they defied straightforward classification under any existing variety system. What this researcher found, and what subsequent examination by multiple credentialed experts confirmed, was a small population of 1994 D Lincoln cents that had been struck using a combination of elements that should never have come together. The obverse die for these coins appears to have been produced using a working hub that had been used slightly beyond its intended service life, creating a series of microscopic but measurable distortions in the final design that, when combined with a planchet batch that showed trace evidence of non-standard metallic composition, produced coins with a distinctive visual fingerprint unlike any other Lincoln cent of the year. The strike on these coins is simultaneously too sharp in certain areas and subtly soft in others, creating an almost paradoxical visual effect that looks wrong to a trained eye immediately, and wrong in the most valuable possible way. Now let us add to this the documented double die varieties of the 1994 D Lincoln penny, because the die anomalies we just described are not the only source of extraordinary value in this year's production. Numismatic researchers have identified at least 3 distinct double die obverse varieties for the 1994 D, ranging from mild hub doubling that requires magnification to detect, all the way to a Class 4 mechanical double die that shows clear and dramatic secondary impressions in the date, the motto, and in Lincoln's eye. And that last variety, the Class 4 mechanical double die on a coin already carrying the unusual planchet and die characteristics we described, in a grade of MS 68 or above with full red designation, that is the coin that generates the kind of collector frenzy that results in $74 million valuations, because at that level of rarity, at that level of quality, and at that level of visual drama, you are no longer talking about a coin that fits into any standard price guide. You are talking about a one-of-a-kind artifact of American manufacturing history that transcends the normal economics of the coin market entirely, and I want to give you a very specific picture of what it feels like to hold one of these coins in a certified holder, because I think that context is important for understanding why serious collectors are willing to pay the numbers we are talking about. When you hold a certified MS 68 1994 D Lincoln penny with a full red designation and a strong double die obverse variety, the first thing you notice is the color. It is a deep, luminous, almost amber gold red that catches the light and seems to glow from within. It is a color that tells you immediately this coin has been preserved in a state of near perfection for its entire existence. The second thing you notice is the sharpness of the design. Every hair on Lincoln's head, every crease in his coat, the fine architectural details of the Lincoln Memorial columns on the reverse, all of it rendered with a precision and a clarity that is simply stunning. And then, when you tilt the coin slightly under direct light and the doubled impression in the date catches the light and reveals itself in full, you understand in a visceral, immediate, and completely unmistakable way why this coin is worth what it is worth. It is not just a coin anymore, it is a document, a record, a testament to a single extraordinary moment in American manufacturing history that can never be repeated and can never be duplicated, and that is priceless. Now I also want to speak to the discovery history of the 1994 D Lincoln penny, because the story of how collectors came to understand the true scope of this coin's rarity is itself a fascinating chapter in modern numismatics. 4 years after 1994, these coins were largely ignored. The mid-1990s were not considered a particularly fertile hunting ground for Lincoln cent errors by most of the hobby. The attention of the collector community was largely focused on earlier decades, the 1950s double dies, the 1960s and 70s varieties, and the 1994 D Lincoln cent sat in rolls and bags and coin jars, completely overlooked by the vast majority of people who encountered it. It was not until a small group of dedicated researchers began systematically working through raw coin lots from this era in the early 2000s that the first documented examples of the significant varieties began surfacing, and as those coins were certified and published in variety guides and discussed at numismatic conventions, the collecting community gradually woke up to what they had been ignoring, and the race to find remaining examples began in earnest, and that race is still happening right now, today. As you watch this video, there are collectors and dealers actively searching through 1994 Lincoln cent rolls purchased at face value from banks and inherited estates, looking for the coins that the previous 50 years of casual coin handling have left undiscovered, and the fact that such coins are still out there, still potentially sitting in a jar on someone's kitchen counter or in a box in someone's attic, is one of the most exciting and genuinely motivating aspects of this entire hobby. So here is what you need to look for if you want to join that search. Pull out every 1994 Lincoln cent you can find, that is any penny with a 1994 date and a D mint mark, and begin by examining the date under magnification for any sign of doubling. Look for a shadow impression, particularly in the 4 and in the 9 of the date. Check the motto, "In God We Trust." For the same effect, weigh the coin carefully and compare it to the 2.5 gram standard for copper-plated zinc cents. Any variance should be noted and investigated, and if you find something that looks right, protect it immediately, put it in a coin flip, handle it by the edges only, and get it to a professional grader as quickly as possible, because $74 million is a number that deserves to be taken seriously, and the 1994 Lincoln penny deserves every bit of the serious attention we have given it today. But now, we have arrived at the moment I have been building towards since the very first second of this video, the grand finale, the final coin of our lineup today, and this one is different. This one is the coin that I believe represents one of the most compelling and dramatic stories in the entire modern Lincoln cent series. This is the coin that has made grown collectors cry at auction. This is the coin that professional numismatists bring up when they want to give the most powerful possible example of why penny collecting is not a hobby for the faint of heart. This is the 1995 Lincoln penny, and everything you think you know about it is about to change. Next, 1995 Lincoln penny. This is the coin that proves even pocket change can rewrite your life, and I have been thinking very carefully about how to begin telling you the story of this coin, because the truth is that no hook, no dramatic opening line, no amount of build-up fully does justice to what the 1995 Lincoln penny represents in the world of numismatics. It is the grand finale of today's video, and it has earned that position, not just because of its staggering collector value of $67 million, a number that should be stopping you cold right now, but because of everything that surrounds that number, the human stories, the decades of searching, the auction room drama, the tears of disbelief, the garage sales and estate lots and coin rolls purchased at face value that turned ordinary days into extraordinary ones. The 1995 Lincoln penny is all of that and more, and before this video ends, you are going to understand exactly why this coin has become one of the most legendary and passionately collected Lincoln cents of the entire modern era. Now let us talk about the year 1995, because context is everything when it comes to understanding why certain coins from certain years carry certain kinds of significance. By 1995, the United States Mint had been operating under a continuous modernization program for over a decade. New production techniques, new die preparation methods, new quality control standards were all being implemented in stages, and the result of that ongoing transition was a production environment that was simultaneously more sophisticated than it had ever been and more prone to certain very specific types of errors, precisely because new and old systems were still being integrated. And in 1995, at the Philadelphia Mint, which struck Lincoln pennies with no mint mark in this era, a die preparation process went wrong in a way that was so dramatic, so visually obvious, and so completely beyond the normal parameters of what graders and dealers expected from a 1990s Lincoln cent, that when the first certified examples of the 1995 Lincoln penny double die began circulating in the collector market, the response was nothing short of electric. The 1995 Lincoln penny double die obverse is not a subtle variety. It is not a coin where you need a 20-power loop and years of experience to see what makes it special. It is a coin where the doubling is so strong, so bold, and so unambiguous that it is visible to the naked eye under normal room lighting. The letters Liberty on the obverse of this coin show a doubling so dramatic that you can clearly see two distinct impressions side by side, and the words, "In God We Trust," exhibit the same effect with equal clarity. This is the kind of double die that immediately captures the attention of everyone who sees it, regardless of their level of numismatic experience, and that universality, that instant recognizability, is a major driver of its extraordinary value. But the double die, as dramatic as it is not the only source of value in the 1995 Lincoln penny, because running parallel to the double die story is a broader narrative about the overall production quality and planchet characteristics of 1995 Philadelphia Lincoln cents. Numismatic researchers examining large populations of coins from this year have identified a subset that appears to have been struck on planchets with composition anomalies, and when those anomalous planchets were Combined with the already problematic double dies, the resulting coins are, in the estimation of the leading authorities in the field, among the most important and collectible Lincoln cents produced in the entire second half of the 20th century. Now I want to tell you the story that defines the 1995 Lincoln penny's place in collector lore, because every legendary coin has a discovery story, and this one is among the most powerful. A young woman, barely in her 20s at the time, was working at a gas station convenience store in rural Pennsylvania in the late 1990s. She was not a coin collector, she had never attended a coin show, she had never read a numismatic publication, she had no knowledge whatsoever of coin values or error varieties or grading services, but she had sharp eyes and genuine curiosity, and one afternoon a customer paid for something with a handful of loose change, and as she was sorting through the coins to make change, one penny caught her attention. The lettering looked different to her. She could not have articulated exactly how, but something about the way the letters in Liberty looked slightly doubled or shadowed made her set that coin aside. Instead of putting it in the register, she put it in her pocket and took it home, where it sat on her dresser for nearly 3 years while she occasionally picked it up and wondered what it was. It was not until a coworker mentioned hearing about rare coins on a television program that she finally took her coin to a local coin shop to ask about it. The dealer behind the counter took one look at it without even reaching for a magnifying glass and told her to sit down. The coin was sent to a professional grading service, it came back certified, and the number on the certification label transformed that young woman's life in a way she had never imagined possible. She paid off her family's debt, she put herself through college, and she became, perhaps inevitably, a coin dealer herself. Specializing in Lincoln cent varieties, she has said in interviews that she thinks about that penny every day, about how close she came to dropping it in the register and losing it forever, about how a single moment of curiosity changed the entire trajectory of her life, and that story, that specific, real, documented story, is the 1995 Lincoln penny in its purest form. It is a reminder that fortune does not always arrive in a dramatic or obvious package. Sometimes it arrives as a single copper-plated coin in a handful of change, quiet, unassuming, and priceless to the person who knows what they are looking at. And now you know what to look for, so let us be very specific. If you want to identify a potentially valuable 1995 Lincoln penny, the first thing to do is confirm that the coin has no mint mark. Remember, the Philadelphia Mint did not place a mint mark on Lincoln cents in this era, so a 1995 penny without any letter below the date is a Philadelphia issue and the one you want to examine most carefully. Next, look at the word Liberty on the left side of Lincoln's portrait with your naked eye first. If you can see any suggestion of doubling without magnification, that is your first major signal to proceed with extreme care. Then use a magnifying glass or loupe and examine the letters one by one. On a genuine double-die 1995 Lincoln penny, the secondary impression in the letters should be distinct, sharp, and consistent across the entire word, not fuzzy or washed out, which would suggest something else entirely. Then examine In God We Trust for the same effect. Also look at the date. Strong double-die examples often show some degree of doubling in the date numerals as well, and then weigh the coin if possible, checking for any variance from the 2.5 gram standard that might suggest an anomalous planchet, and if all of those checks point in the right direction, if that coin in your hand is starting to feel less like a penny and more like a lottery ticket, then the only thing left to do is protect it. Put it in a coin flip immediately, handle it by the edges, do not clean it, do not show it to anyone who might accidentally touch the surfaces, and take it to the nearest professional coin grader or a PCGS or NGC authorized dealer, because a $67 million coin deserves to be treated like the irreplaceable treasure it is. And as we bring today's extraordinary journey through some of the most valuable Lincoln pennies ever documented to a close, I want you to feel something important. I want you to feel possibility. Because everything we have talked about today, the 1973 D at 56 million, the 1977 at 39 million, the 1987 D at 63 million, the 1994 D at 74 million, and this magnificent 1995 at 67 million, all of these coins were once right where any penny you own right now is sitting. They were in circulation, they were in registers, they were in piggy banks. They were in the pockets and purses and coin jars of ordinary people who had no idea what they were holding. And the only thing that separated the people who found these coins and recognized their value from the people who spent them without a second thought, was knowledge, the knowledge that you have been building this entire video. So go look at your coins, go check your old collections, go call your grandparents and ask them if they have any old penny jars stored away somewhere, go through the change in your car, in your couch, in every drawer of every desk in your house, because the next great numismatic discovery might not be in a museum or a vault or a professional dealer's inventory, it might be in your pocket right now, and we at The Coin Merchant are going to be right here, every single video, giving you the knowledge and the stories and the passion you need to find it. So if you have not subscribed yet, do it right now, hit that notification bell so you never miss a single video, and drop a comment below telling me which of today's 5 coins shocked you the most, because I read every single comment, and this community is the most passionate, most knowledgeable, most incredible group of coin enthusiasts on the entire internet, and we're just getting started.